Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the July 23rd River Falls City Council meeting. First thing we'll do is stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Christie, can I have a roll call, please?
Bierstead.
Here.
Bjork.
Here.
Carroll. Downing.
Here.
Morissette.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Odine.
Here.
Okay, next move on to approval of the minutes from the June 25th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we'll go to approval of bills with Mr. Downing.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I move for approval of the bills in the amount of $1,482,501.74, subject to the Comptroller.
Second.
First and second on the bills. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next move on, public comments. This is when if there's anybody in the audience has anything like to stand up and talk about, now would be the time. When you come up, sign on the piece of paper with your name, address, phone number, social security number, if you want to leave that for me too. That's option. And everybody's got 2 minutes.
My name is Brad Gilbertson. I've got a little information to give you in regards to I live in the 1143 County Road M, East River Falls, about a half a mile. Now, there's been a lot of discussion on what might be happening. Might be is a proposed porta potty business out my direction, right next to my property. I live in the urban reserve area, which is regulated by the city of River Falls. There are certain types of businesses that are allowed in the urban reserve area. And first off, I didn't ask to be put into the urban reserve area with certain restrictions put on me out there. But there's an individual at 1149 County Road M, which is Justin Kleist, which it hasn't been proposed yet, but there is a rumor on he wants to have a porta potty business there. He's already obtained an egg building permit for agricultural only. That's how he got his permit. But what I'm understanding is that it might be coming down the pipeline that he wants to get it rezoned for his porta potty business. But in the urban reserve area, there are certain types of businesses that are allowed in that urban reserve area. And, you know, some of them are dental office, architect office, dental office. But what's far away from being allowed there is a porta potty business. And some of the rules in the urban reserve area are, I can't see, I'm not supposed to be able to see what type of business he has there when it's in the urban reserve area. I will be seeing porta potties
15 seconds.
going right around my property at all times. And it's just, it seems like this shouldn't be allowed. That, I guess, I've talked to a number of senior planners from different counties.
Time.
And they see it the way I see it. So if it gets to you people, I would sure hope that you see things that aren't allowed there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything?
Hi, my name is Lance Hovland. I live at 310 West Charlotte Street, and I am on the Hope for Earth Board of Directors. I just wanted to thank Scott Simpson for meeting with me and a number of other members of the community who were concerned about different sustainability issues, and I appreciate in the meeting that Scott addressed many concerns that we had. Specifically in regards to the hiring of a sustainability manager, Scott said the plan is to show the community the shape of it within 90 days, hopefully, and get feedback from the community. And so we just look forward to continuing our valuable and productive partnership with the city. So thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else?
Good evening. My name is Dana Lynn Scott, and I'm here regarding the city yard waste site. This spring, the city reminded residents that lawn clippings blown onto the streets will wash unwanted nutrients, herbicides, and pesticides into the Kinney. Yet when residents bring lawn clippings to the city yard waste site, these same nutrients, herbicides, and pesticides drain into the Kinney every time it rains. In addition to these pollutants, biotoxins created by the poorly managed composting regimen also drain into the Kinney. The city is aware of this problem, but chooses to ignore it, much as it is aware of the danger of airborne waste site biotoxins for the residents living around the yard waste site. I'm sure that when the council met in closed session in February 2021, the city attorney must have explained how the harm its poorly run yard waste site creates a legal liability that might cost taxpayers dearly. Isn't the fact, as proven by the city's own testing, that the yard waste site is harming nearby residents reason enough to move the site and run it properly? If not, isn't the fact that it creates noxious runoff into the Kinney in violation of state and federal clean water laws sufficient for that? I've taken runoff samples from the site over the summer and present to you 2 samples from which show the dark concentrate which runs off the site into a spring-fed pond and the polluted water which runs from that pond directly to the Kinney. The spring-fed pond would be crystal clear if it were not for the waste site runoff. Instead, it is gray and loaded with nutrients and fungal spores. Were it not for residual herbicide, it would be green. And were it not for the residual pesticide in the compost leachate, that
15
spring-fed
seconds.
pond would have frogs, water bugs, and minnows in it. The polluted pond's water drains directly into the Kinney, carrying herbicides and pesticides and biocontaminants with it into the neighboring communities. This problem is easily fixable, but it will take more than 2 minutes to explain how. Are any of you willing to meet with me to do that?
Thank
No
you.
law or regulation requires you to remain silent.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything? Okay, move on to, we got 3 different presentations. The first one is the St. Croix Valley Business Innovation Center presentation. And this will be Sherry Marnell, who is the center director out there.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me. As the mayor mentioned, my name is Sherry Marnell. I'm the director of the St. Croix Valley Business Innovation Center. I'm employed by the University of Wisconsin River Falls. Many of you guys have been to the Innovation Center, but just felt like there was a great opportunity now that we've been open for 6 years to share a little bit and remind you guys who we are and what we do, as well as some really amazing statistics of what our businesses are doing at the Innovation Center and how it impacts our economy. So who we are, I'm not going to read all of the slides. I'm going to try to summarize them to make sure that I stay within my 5 to 7 minutes and allow for any questions. But ultimately, we are a business incubator where we work to train, support, and foster small businesses to ultimately help increase the economic value of our area. Really, from a business incubation overview, really what we're here to do is to help produce successful businesses, provide management guidance, technical assistance, and consulting and advising for our businesses. Ultimately, we're stronger together, and that's kind of the theme that I have for the Innovation Center as a whole, that when businesses work on their own, they often get stuck in their own thoughts, and allowing them to be around other entrepreneurs, around other resources helps them achieve better results and helps our economy as a whole. So you may or may not be aware of our history, and that history started way back in 2011 when the city of River Falls, the University of Wisconsin River Falls, the River Falls EDC, and soon after Chippewa Valley Technical College said, hey, we all want to help the economy. We all want to help small businesses. Why are we doing this alone? We're stronger together. We did a feasibility study and identified a need for a business incubator, and that's what we have today. In 2018, we were awarded a 50% matching fund from the EDA of a $1.4 million. And those 4 founding partners signed a 20-year master relationship agreement. The city committed to the land. Carrie Schreiner is also the treasurer for the space. The University of Wisconsin River Falls staffs the building, which is myself, some interns, as well as the Small Business Development Center that offices out of there. The River Falls EDC takes on the financial liability of the building from the loan perspective, as well as any additional maintenance. And CBTC is our training room sponsor, also has an office, as well as does some monthly maintenance for us. We're located in the Sterling Ponds Industrial Park. You guys should all be familiar with that area. And we service really the 6 counties around us. However, from a target market standpoint, our incubator members are really within a 20-mile radius. So I say my target market truly is St. Croix and Pierce counties. A recent updated feasibility study says that within those 2 counties, we actually produce almost 500 new businesses a year, specifically in business and other support services, as well as restaurants and other eating establishments. From a U.S. Statistics standpoint, over 1 million people start businesses each year. Only 2/3 of those survive after 2 years. Within 5 years, only 50% of those businesses survive. And after 10 years, only 1/3. And again, those are U.S. statistics. However, when you're part of an incubator, after 5 years, you're significantly more likely to survive. And what's really great in this updated feasibility study is in our 2 counties, our primary target market, we actually are at 60.7% survival rate after 5 years. And in the 6 years we've been open and the 23 businesses that have graduated, we are significantly higher than that, with 87% of our businesses still surviving after they graduate from the Innovation Center. So more startup statistics, because I love statistics, so you might get bored with those, but I'm a data geek. So approximately, again, US data, 75% of firms graduating from incubators stay within their host region. At the Innovation Center, we've graduated 23 businesses, 20 of them are still in business, and 19 still in our region. So that's 75%, that's our regional data or US data. We actually have 97% of our graduates that are staying within our region, which again, great statistics from an economic development standpoint. We have 3 main reasons why our businesses love us, and 100% of them recommend us to other entrepreneurs. Businesses start, and research will support this, because businesses are passionate about a product or a service, but they don't necessarily know the business side. And that's my passion, my education, and my experience. And something I can talk business all the time, and sometimes my parent or my husband will tell you to cut it off at parties and weekends and things like that. But I love business. You're also around other entrepreneurs. So again, going back to creating that ecosystem where not only you have me as a resource that advises and coaches my businesses formally quarterly, as well as oftentimes hallway conversations and sometimes even monthly with some of our businesses. You have each other to lean on to help learn what they can do to achieve their goals. And then lastly is that quarterly formal meeting with our businesses. Not all businesses have board of directors. Not all businesses have people in support at home that want to talk business like I do. I'll go quickly through this, but we do have 6 target markets within the Innovation Center. We have industrial space, 10,000 square feet for product-based businesses. 2 years ago, we opened up a food-ready space for up to 9 businesses. We currently have 5 in that space. We have co-working space for incubator and non-incubator businesses, office space, training room and conference rooms, which many of you guys have utilized, is open to the public. Last year, we actually did in-kind donation of almost $30,000 of room use to nonprofits in the community. Again, another great ad for our economy. And then we have our second floor. We just made a small investment in doing a basic finish. It currently is unoccupied, looking for a long-term anchor tenant and available for up to 140 people events until that anchor tenant comes. So 90% occupied, really with spaces in our office area where we have occupancy. Some really fun statistics. Again, I'm not a statistic geek. In the 6 years we've opened, our businesses have retained 159 jobs. They've added 120 jobs. They've invested $34 million of capital into our economy. 25% of our businesses grew in space at the Innovation Center, and that's exactly what we want them to do. And 76% of the time that we've been open, we've been over 80% occupied. In our International Incubation Association that we're part of, recommendation to have an occupancy rate sitting more around 70 to 75%. So ultimately in a big demand for more space for our innovations or for small businesses. Today, we have 16 businesses that call us home. Again, that 80% occupied. We have additional 12 businesses that operate in mail only, co-working, or support at the Innovation Center. I mentioned 100% recommend us. 23 businesses have graduated, and we have a wait list that keeps growing. 14 food businesses would love to come to us if we had the space, as well as 8 industrial businesses. So really an opportunity to expand, which we do have the space to do. I'm not going to go in detail here, but again, I love my graphs. The top graph is just showing you occupancy by target market. Really, if my mouse, you can't see it. So the dark blue line is that total occupancy. The red is where we're at the target. Ultimately, you can see from the visual, we've just continued to grow since we've opened. The bottom is business count and where we're at from not only total businesses, but also incubator businesses since we've opened. You've seen we had a tremendous growth in 2021. A lot of that was driven to the Main Street Bounce Back Grant, but we continued to maintain that occupancy even after that grant was done. Just examples of current businesses at our Innovation Center. If you haven't heard about them, I would encourage you to come and learn about our businesses. Many of them are businesses you have no idea about that actually do business not only locally, but also nationally, and we even have international businesses. I thank my management committee for their support. They are my guiding principles. As I mentioned, I do report to the University of Wisconsin River Falls, but I meet primarily with my board of directors. It's a committee underneath the River Falls EDC. 2 people from each of those 4 founding partners are part of the management committee, and we meet often about my approval board of who my members will be. I also thank our sponsors. We obviously wouldn't be here without them, as well as we are a nonprofit, so naturally any support is very much valued. So now what? I encourage you to share with your network. We continue to build awareness. It continues to be a hidden gem, even though we have seen significant growth. I encourage as you learn about maybe yourself, your family members, friends, neighbors, as they have or need business support, to reach out to us. I welcome you to come for a tour. I also welcome you to follow us on all the social medias. We have a lot of really great topics, monthly topics, free for anybody in the community that we try to promote the best we can. And then lastly, on Monday, August 5th, we have our last Makers Market at the Innovation Center from 4 to 7:30, or 4 to 7, that supports about a dozen entrepreneurs, not only just at our Innovation Center, but open to any business that's a product or a service. So again, looking to support entrepreneurism as a whole in the area. And that's a wrap. Any questions for me about what we do or how we do it?
I have a couple.
Yeah,
Yes.
go ahead.
One of your earlier slides, you had 477 new businesses.
Yes.
Can you explain that? I mean, is that there at the incubator, or?
Yeah,
And
great.
you said each year?
Yes, great question. So that feasibility I mentioned that we did back in 2011 to make sure that there was a need for a business incubator in our area. We just did a refresh on what the data numbers are. So based on Place Dynamics, which is who we hired, in the St. Croix and Pierce County total, so that is combining those 2 counties, we open almost 500 businesses a year.
Okay.
So no, not just at the Innovation Center, not those that are supported by the Small Business Development Center, but that we have every year in those 2 counties combined, almost 500 new businesses that are opened.
Okay, that makes sense. And then another question I had, of the people that do come to the incubator, where are they coming from? Are they coming from the university, or are they coming from Hudson, New Richmond? Where are they coming from?
Yeah, great question. 75% of the people who find us come through organic searches. So they'll reach out to the city looking for space. They'll reach out to the small business development looking for space. They'll look for the counties. Definitely it's word of mouth. Again, we try our best on a social media standpoint, but we don't have a large marketing budget to get that reach. And we also do welcome pre-revenue up to stage 2 businesses. So some incubators across the nation and world will do cohort models. We, because we're rural, welcome businesses that have never sold a product or a good to those businesses that have been around for a while. Does that answer your question, Jeff?
No, where are they coming from?
Oh, geographically,
Yeah.
most of them come from the 2 counties around us.
Okay.
We have 2 businesses right now that are from Minnesota. One was relocated from Minnesota, and then 2 that live in Minnesota and commute across the border. In our feasibility study that was done most recently, other incubators that sit on border communities, oftentimes businesses don't cross the border, so it's less likely, but all of them come within the 2 counties.
And how many businesses are out there right now?
Right now, there's 16 incubator businesses, which are businesses that I meet with formally quarterly. And then there's an additional 12 businesses that operate out of there. Some other services we provide are mail only. So that way, if you don't want to use your own personal address and you want a business address, you can use our address and have a mail space and receive packages, as well as co-working. We allow businesses of people who maybe don't want to work from home and need a professional environment with high-speed internet to work in our co-working space. Does
So
that
out
now
of the-
answer your question?
That does.
Good.
So out of those 28,
Yes.
how many are startup? How many are new and not just looking for assistance or your services that you have, but how many are new to?
What
business?
I would call pre-revenue, you mean they haven't sold a product or a good. In the if I'm trying to do my math in my head today, there are 2 businesses that came to me never selling a product or a service.
Okay.
Most of them are an existing business, maybe again a solopreneur, and they're looking to hire other people, or they have an existing business looking to incubate in our space, get connected to resources, and potentially pivot their business to a new branch or new product line.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
That does.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
Yes.
I've consumed enough, so.
I love it.
Anybody else?
Anybody else have anything? Good. No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sherry.
Next, we got a housing presentation by our Community Development Director, Amy Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. Get this set up and going. So I believe per Sherry's comment that staff did a very good job coaching presentations today, that they should be 5 to 7 minutes. I'll give you the forewarning, mine is not. So sit back and relax a little bit.
It's less?
So this came about because last month the St. Croix EDC was going to provide some housing presentations, 2 of them across the county. They had asked Derek Builders, Family Friendly Workplace, and the City of River Falls to present. So I was able to pull this presentation together, and as I did, realized that it was a very good composite presentation that kind of highlighted our work over the past 5 years. So after doing so and presenting those last month, thought that you might appreciate them as well as our community might too. So mentioned those were 2 presentations. There was probably about 50 people that attended, local businesses, economic development professionals, etc. So what I'm going to do is give you the presentation as I did to those. So again, much of this you know, but I hope that you provide or see the value in it from composite as it comes together. So what we can take a look at tonight is the work that the city completed with our housing study and how it has helped us. I'll provide some history of housing development in the city and also some examples of the different housing projects that have come forward with unique aspects, including some workforce housing projects too. And then lastly, we'll touch just a little bit on the city's comprehensive plan and how that plays into housing in the city. So in 2018, the city and the Housing Authority came together to have a housing study completed. At that time, we had anecdotal evidence that the market was tight, but we didn't know just how tight. So we didn't have the facts. We moved into the housing study in order to get those facts and to be able to pull together some of those key issues and learn how to address them from a housing perspective, set the priorities and the policy alternatives as we went forward. So the study is a very detailed report. Many of you may have looked at it already, but it provides the firsthand data showing that half of our population commutes out of the city and half comes in. That was about the first time that we had seen that in data. Also provided that our vacancy rate was much lower than we would have ever anticipated. For the market rate properties at about 1.2% and 0.8% for affordable properties. So that was interesting. Also provided the median household income for the prime market area at just over $76,000. And I say prime market area just to give you some information. When we talk about the City of River Falls housing study, I think about it, some other folks might think about it as being the municipal boundary of the city. That's not how housing studies work. So the prime market area is our foundation and what the data comes from. And it includes such factors as community patterns, commuting patterns, places of employment, really what draws the housing and need for River Falls. So our prime market area includes much of, or more of Pierce County than it does St. Croix County. It does include Prescott and Ellsworth. It does not include Hudson though. So just to give you kind of a general area. So here are some of the broad category unit demand totals. Just about 2,000 units from that 2018 study as far as what our need was. But these are broad totals, right? So if you see the senior category, there are actually 7 breakdown categories within the senior category. Everything from the adult active category all the way through the spectrum to memory care. So again, broad categories. 2018, we received this data. It took us a while to weed through it, to understand what it meant for the city, and what we were going to do with it, right? So we learned in the next 2 years that it especially provided backup for staff, and if you will, for council as well. As housing projects started coming through, we were able to say, we know we need this because, right? So that was helpful. And then of course, we got 2 years through and we're dealing then with the pandemic and everything slowed. So we came out of the pandemic, thought that we still had a tight market, decided to update the housing study, right? So we did demand calculation updates and they reviewed the demographics and market factors just to ensure that things were still on track. Wasn't a full update, but you can see some of the changes. The median household income, you'll recall, was I think 76, now up to 90, projected to be 103 by 2027. Our general occupancy demand, 954 by 2030, and our senior units, 781 by 2027. So you'll notice that they only do 5-year projections for our senior units. That market is volatile enough that they won't project out as far for those units. But our senior unit demand increased. You'll see here, which also included the need for 52 memory care units. In 2018, there wasn't a memory care need. So just in the 4 years, you can see how things have changed within the demand. So what do we do once we have all this information? Then we start tracking the data. So these are the 22 numbers in need in the gray, and what we've brought on in 22 and 23 in the blue. So just the 4 categories. We've got single family for sale, multifamily for sale, multifamily for rent, and then you'll see the senior housing on the right. Again, the largest demand that we have. So takeaways from the housing study is that it provides a lot of data, which is great information, but really the most pertinent in general is the market rate analysis and the projected units across the housing types. The housing study is also a place for developers. It's very easy for staff to be able to say, when we're talking to a new developer, hey, we did a housing study, we know what we need, it's on the website if you haven't checked it out. It's a great initial point for them. And it really provides support for staff and yourselves as housing projects come through. So if we switch to a bit of background on housing development and history in the city, we are fortunate to have the River Falls Housing Authority that provides 200 units of affordable housing for seniors, persons with disabilities, and families. We also have Habitat for Humanity that has worked in and around the city for many years, providing home builds, neighborhood stabilization programs, aging in place assistance, and of course the Eco Village, which provides 18 units of single-family ownership affordable housing in the city. If we look at residential building permit trends over a span of about 11 years, you can see this is 2010 to 2021, you can see that we average about 60 single-family permits per year. Multifamily, however, in the red, you can see is pretty sporadic, right? So for the years 2014 to 2018, we had very few multifamily projects coming on. And then all of a sudden, wow, spike trying to backpedal for all of that demand in 2019 and 2020. 2021 then came back to, looks like just about 32 units came on in 2021. And this graph then shows the housing units and building permits for the past about 5 years, so 2019 to 2023. You'll notice the building permits in green along the bottom stay pretty steady, but the units themselves are changing, right? So I would say that we've got high multifamily development in 2020 based on the spike there. And you'll notice 2021 lag with the pandemic, and then our units came up again for 22 and 23. So shifting further towards development, a little bit about the city's approach to how we develop. So overall, community and council is supportive about thoughtful planned development in the community. So because of that, we try to make it easy for developers to do their work. We have a development review packet on our website that interprets our key code sections so developers know upfront when they're coming into the community what is expected of them. We also offer administrative project approval for projects that meet zoning and special parameters, right? So if they can make their project fit and it's zoned correctly, then staff can review the project and approve, and the developer's ready to go. This is a big deal for them, right? Not having to go through the public process is money, it's time, and it's risk that they save. So, shifting again, we can walk through a few projects that have happened in the past 5 or so years. Obviously, 2019, Depot and City Station, just to the north of here, came on. 2 buildings, 50 units of affordable senior housing in the Depot building, and 24 units of market rate in City Station. This was a Girard project that came in using WIDA tax dollars or tax credits and tax increment financing. In 2020, we have Milltown that came in on the west side of town. Again, 84 units of town-style apartments. Partnered with the city to redo the entrance to Dry Run Road, provide parking to DeSanctis Park as well. A good partnership there. And we know from talking with the developer that these units were filled before they were even completed. Next, we have 1,300 residences. This is South Main Street, a great example of a redevelopment project in the city. Those of you may recall, this is the old River Falls Hotel site, which was redeveloped. Again, a Girard project, which utilized WIDA tax credits, federal home loan bank dollars, tax increment financing, and I believe that there were also some sustainability and green dollars that went into this project too. 50 units for low to very low income individuals with some veterans set-asides as well in this project. And next we have the Sycamore, 84 units of senior housing on the south side of town, everything from independent living, assisted living, and memory care. So this brought on 16 memory care units. You noticed or may remember we need 52 by 2027, so we still have a need for more. Again, successful project. They have been open for just about a year, and I suspect they maybe have 1 or 2 units left open. So this project I've labeled Market Rate Plus along with the next one, and I'll explain that in just a minute. But this is Lake George Lofts, 32 units. This is the 3rd phase. right, of the University Falls development. They were bringing on market rate when the city had the conversation with the developer about how we could provide workforce housing in the market rate project. So working with that developer, we used TID funds and the City Housing Fund to provide 6 units at 80% LMI for 15 years to put some low to moderate income units within that project. We did the same thing with the one being built on the north side, the Uplands, 106 units planned at market rate. And the city worked with the developer to bring on 1 unit at 80% LMI and 2 units at 50% LMI, all 3 for 10 years. Again, using tax increment financing and the city's housing fund. So the comprehensive plan, all of you know, we completed March of 2023. It was an 18-month process, really provides the foundation of housing for us in the city. The two elements, both housing and land use, pair together to encourage that growth, mostly as infill development and adaptive reuse versus greenfield development. So both elements identify and encourage the development of the missing middle housing typology, that being dwelling units that are neither traditional single family nor standard garden style apartments, but the solutions that are in between, such as townhomes, duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. So implementation of the comprehensive plan for housing may include alternative construction methods. We've been talking somewhat about accessory dwelling units and zoning modifications to increase density per the plan. So in summary, the housing studies provide the data so that you can provide the message. They make it easy, and we try to make it easy for developers to develop in the city. And we utilize a wealth of tools within the city to provide housing development, and you can see those listed here. So that wraps up the presentation. Probably the most significant question that I received more than once was, how do we get a council like yours? And for a staff person, that's a lovely question to be asked. And it helps with the longevity of your staff as well, because we love to be here. So I just wanted you to know that the support and direction that you provide helps staff do the composite of work that has been pulled together over the last few years for housing, nearly 450 units across all housing categories, just in the examples that I showed. So with that, Mayor, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Amy. Does anybody have any questions?
I've got a question for Amy. Amy, I noticed on your on the housing need, the bar graph, you just took us through 21, I think it was, or 20, doesn't matter.
Yes.
Have you been able to bring that more current with bringing on the units from the Uplands, Thompson Heights, and the current projects up on that Radio Road interchange, plus the number of single-family things we have going on across from the Habitat Village and then
Yeah,
South Point?
we haven't done this bar graph.
Okay.
This is pulled right from the 22 update. We can, but the ones that I provided previously pulled to 2023 with number of permits and
And I know we
such
get
too,
them
so.
monthly in our administrator's
Correct.
report, so we do see those, but those are just year to date and not cumulative over time.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting to have a little bit more. We continue to be short, there's no doubt about it, but it would be interesting to see if we're gaining any ground at all on the issue. And the second thing I guess I've got to say is just more of a general comment. In my private sector career, I deal with housing studies all the time and in different markets. Recently looked at Des Moines, St. Louis, Eau Claire, and Fort Wayne, Indiana. You could literally cross out the name of the city and write the same name in on all of them. It's not a problem that we have just in River Falls. And I say that because I think all of us know it, but I think the public needs to hear that, because the questions we get in public are, who's gonna occupy all these? Who's building all these? Why do we need all these? Well, because it tells us that we do, and it's proven by the fact that
Milltown.
Milltown was full before it even drove the last nail in the board. So
Yeah.
that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Amy, I just have a clarification. What is an ADU? What does that mean?
An accessory dwelling unit?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that could be a mother-in-law flat, is another term for it. So it could be a dwelling unit above a garage, that type of additional unit provided on a parcel.
And we currently don't allow that?
Correct. Yeah. Yep.
Mr. Mayor? Yeah. Just wanted to take a second to thank you, Amy, for the work you've been doing as a staff. And it's not easy to get as far as our city has. If you look around at the other cities, we've worked towards these goals. For me, I really appreciate projects like the 1300 block where you've got the solar involved. And I'd like to see more of that in the future when those opportunities arise. I know not everybody is up to date, or should I say, aware of how tax incremental districting works in the sense of how we get the funds to do it. But we're grateful that we can do that and that we have experts in our city to help work towards these goals so we can be a leader in sustainable energy. And I want to see more projects like that when we have the opportunity. So thank you.
Good.
Thanks, Amy.
All right, you're welcome.
Okay, and up next, we have Utility Director Kevin Westhouse and our city engineer Todd Nikleski are going to talk about wastewater project update.
Todd, why don't you come over here and pull this up while I do the salutations.
I'm not a tech guy.
Down here. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Kevin Westhouse, Utility Director, along with Todd Nikleski, City Engineer. We're here to talk to you tonight about utilities, water. So I sprinkled in some electric information and wastewater information because we need to supply utilities to the development that Amy's bringing into town. So here to do that. I'm excited to be in front of you this evening to give you a brief update on a few projects that you have initiated and endorsed, and we're trying to carry out for you. So I'll be kind of going back and forth with Todd. So let's just get this thing going. Many of you have maybe even visited. This is our wastewater treatment plant site right here. This picture was probably taken a month ago because the cement floor is not poured. Our new dryer building, our $9.5 million dryer building, is in the bottom left picture, corner of this picture. And that project now has plumbing in the floor, electrical in the floor, and the tin for the side walls have just shown up yesterday. That would be starting to be erected very shortly, and in about 4 to 6 weeks, you'll have a 3-story building right there on site. That dryer building sits adjacent to our sludge storage building, which is just off to its right. Currently, once a day, a truck from Ellsworth, West Central Wisconsin Biosolids, backs up to that adjacent building and hauls the sludge to Ellsworth. What'll happen about a year from now is that sludge will go from that building to the new building. It'll be through a screw press, through a dryer, and then a Class A sludge that'll be able to be land applied right in our area. So that's what's happening there. A few more pictures of that. Guys working. I'll just pop through these real quick. There's some walls going up. So the tin walls will sit on top of the brick walls. We tried to do the first 4 to 6 feet, something that gives some nice aesthetic look to it. There they are finishing the concrete. Look at the nice shiny concrete. And that is the location where our screw press and dryer will sit right there. It is double sized, so someday if we need to expand, we'll be able to do that as well. So I was in a meeting today with Strand, our consultant, along with Waukesha, who is our contractor. I'm happy to report that things are going very well. The meeting was kind of just a clunker because there's no drama and things are happening. We have one small change order. We forgot one pipe on a water meter and it's $2,000. So that's our only glitch so far in $9.5 million project. So we're very happy about that. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Todd to talk briefly about our groundwater availability study. And I'm going to come back at you with a few did you knows.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Tonight, I am going to summarize the results of a recently completed groundwater availability study. We had a groundwater availability study completed to estimate sustainable groundwater resources available in River Falls, to better understand our aquifers so we can properly plan for our groundwater use that considers future generations. So before I really dive into it, and I apologize if I get too engineering geeky, I can't help it. A little bit of background about our water system. Similar to most water distribution systems in all of Wisconsin, 95% of them are like ours and are fed by groundwater. We use 5 groundwater drinking wells to pump groundwater out of the ground and into 3 water towers, 1 reservoir, where it becomes introduced into our water distribution system, and we use it at our tap. In general, our 5 groundwater drinking wells withdraw groundwater from 3 geologic formations. That is the St. Peter Sandstone, the Prairie du Chien Dolomite Sandstone, and then the Jordan Sandstone. And looking at a cross section, so this is a slice of our geology through western Wisconsin. The St. Peter Sandstone is that very thin, dark blue line at the top. That's the upper portion of our aquifer. The middle of our aquifer is the Prairie du Chien group. That's the OP, or that turquoise layer. Below the Prairie du Chien group is the Jordan Formation. The Jordan Formation is the bottom of our aquifer, and below the Jordan Formation is what hydrogeologists call a confining layer, which means that groundwater doesn't really move beyond that. So consider the bottom of the Jordan Formation the bottom of the bathtub. Looking at it schematically, and I drew this and I felt like a 3-year-old with a crayon, but this red line somewhat represents where our groundwater comes from within our aquifer. So keep that red line in mind as we move forward. There it is, there's our aquifer. Before we understand what's really happening in our aquifer, we need to understand how water gets into it in the first place. For the city of River Falls, our aquifer is 100% recharged by rain. And more specifically, it's rain that falls within our recharge area. So our recharge area is not the exact same as the Kinnickinnick River watershed, but it's really close, and I skipped that, I'm sorry. What you're looking at here is what is our estimated groundwater recharge area. So you can see about 93 square miles of recharge area associated with the main branch of the Kinnickinnick River, the South Fork, and the Rocky Branch. The outline is about 93 square miles. For purposes of this groundwater study, we only assume that 83 of those square miles are available for infiltration of groundwater. Because of the impervious in our developed area and areas immediately adjacent to the waterways. But we know that all of the rain that falls on the ground doesn't necessarily infiltrate into groundwater. In an average year, we get 31 inches of rainfall. That's a 50-year average. Of those 31 inches, we only get about 8 inches, 8.1 inches of infiltration down into our groundwater. And then moving down the table here, in the 40-year drought, we can expect about 17 inches of rainfall. And of those 17 inches of rainfall, only about 4.4 will ultimately infiltrate and recharge our aquifers. So we know rain is how we recharge our aquifer, rain that falls in our recharge area. Of that rain, some of that will run off as stormwater, head down to the Gulf of Mexico. Some will recharge groundwater. To calculate how much additional groundwater is available and how much is down there, we also need to understand the groundwater withdrawal, which I'll talk about next, and the river base flow, which I'll also talk about next. So groundwater withdrawal is relatively simple. That's how much do we use. The city of River Falls pumps about 1.3 million gallons per day of groundwater out of our aquifer. And that's average, that's 365 days, 365-day average. We, of course, are not the only groundwater user within our recharge area. There are other high-capacity wells that are DNR permanent high-capacity wells. They pump about 0.13 million gallons per day, so 130,000 gallons per day. And they're really minor, but the study did account for allocations associated with some agricultural, commercial, and residential uses as well. And then the river base flow, the Kinney, we know the base flow of the river is groundwater. So I said, think of the bottom of the Jordan Formation as the bottom of the bathtub. As that bathtub fills up, it flows out the Kinnickinnic River. So the average base flow, so the average groundwater base flow of the Kinnickinnic River is 23 million gallons per day. So doing some simple math, we can calculate what's called the groundwater surplus. And the groundwater surplus is the groundwater recharge minus the groundwater withdrawal minus the Kinnickinnic River base flow. Doing that math, and I didn't do that math, the hydrogeologist that prepared this report did that math. Doing that math, 50-year average rainfall, where we expect 31 inches of rain, 8.1 of which recharges our aquifers, we have a groundwater surplus of about 6.88 million gallons per day. Moving down to the 40-year drought, where we can expect 17 inches of rainfall and 4.4 inches of infiltration to groundwater or groundwater recharge, we can expect about 2.84 million gallons per day of groundwater surplus. So the crux of the study and what we wanted to understand was what's down there and what we could use if we need it. And the results of the study indicate that during the 40-year drought, there is sufficient groundwater to support existing needs, protect the environment, and still have an additional 1 billion gallons per year of groundwater surplus. That's 2.84 million gallons per day equates to about 1 billion gallons per year. So that was really what we were looking for as a takeaway from this study. A few other points that really popped out at me are that we are really fortunate to be well positioned to serve our customers and protect the environment. I can't imagine living in a western arid state and having to fight for water all the time. All of our groundwater recharge is from rain. So what we do at the surface will ultimately affect our groundwater resources. And if you remember the map, our groundwater recharge area extends well beyond the corporate limits of the city of River Falls. Outside of our corporate limits, we don't have a ton of control about what happens out there. Within the city of River Falls, we should continue to maintain our strong stormwater ordinance, which does require infiltration for new development. And as and if the need arises, we should begin identifying potential well sites that meet state well siting requirements that also align with our water system needs. So with that, Kevin's going to give us another update on more stuff.
Yeah. I don't know if they call this the grand finale. I don't know, like fireworks shows.
Yeah.
Start popping off.
And then if any questions afterwards, we'll happy to answer anything.
Thank you, Todd. That was very good.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, we have monitors in our wells right now, and we've been I always monitor those. And this study that Todd quarterbacked it substantiated kind of our thoughts that were okay, but that was a good study, and I'm glad you went forward with that, Todd, and just reaffirmed that sitting on the 3 aquifers that we're sitting pretty good with the water. So that was good news. More good news, PFAS. I think we've kind of gone over this a little bit with you in the last year, but I just wanted to reaffirm more good news. So a PFAS update. So last year we did a fairly rigorous testing for PFAS that was required by both the EPA and the DNR. So we're required to do 1 round of samples for the EPA. 1 round means we did a sample at every well in town. And then we had to do 3 rounds of sampling for the DNR in 2023. And with all those samples, we had no detects for PFAS in our water system in River Falls. That we have to feel very fortunate about that. So, so we had no detection. So then we're only required to do 1 time per year for the DNR. So, and the EPA said until further notice, we don't have to test for the EPA. So, annual testing now for the DNR because we tested no detect. Just a side note, we do believe that in 2026, we may have to start testing for PFAS in our wastewater as well. Currently, we do not. It still might be that we don't have to, but we're assuming by 2026 with a new permit, we just may have to. So that's just a heads up on that. Okay, next slide. Oh, let me sort of about right there. Well ordinance revisions. You're going to get this in your packet. It's in your packet. You're going to be coming up on this in just a minute. So I have a little note here. So what I'm going to be asking you to do tonight is amend the municipal code as it pertains to water wells within the city. It's a pretty minor change, but I want to just outline what that change is right here for you. So the change in the well ordinance revision will allow for irrigation with existing wells as long as the well doesn't go over 100,000 gallons per day. And we do not currently allow wells in River Falls, but there are 11 current wells within the city. So no new wells, 11 existing wells. And if you have an existing well, you could use it for irrigation if you file the right paperwork with the city and don't go over 100,000 gallons a day. So you say, what are the 11 wells? There's 3 at the golf course. They pump. Winfield Solutions out in Man Valley, they have 1. We have 5 with no city water adjacent to them that live in the city. They're allowed to have a well. And we have 2 within the city that's only in close proximity to our water main, and because it's somewhat financially prohibitive, we've not made them do it. With that, though, they have to do every 5 years to get a safe sample, and every 10 years have a certified inspection from the state. So we know those 11. We monitor those 11, and they're still required to do testing to make sure they're safe. And if we can get them out of the system, we certainly do. So tonight, the change is irrigation with existing wells is really the change, small change. So here's an interesting note for you. Now we're getting in the grand finale. Just did you know? It's fun, interesting information. June was a wet month this year. In 2023, our city averaged 2.25 million gallons of water a day. And in 2024, we averaged 1.2 million gallons of water a day. So that's 1 million gallons less a day, most likely for irrigation. That didn't happen in 2024. That's good news for our aquifers because A, it's raining, B, we're not using the water. But then there's the side light we get our money for our water utility by selling water. So there's that. We'll deal with that later. Electric, so let's keep looking at June, just electric real briefly. You can see here our power bill was about $100,000 less in June, a very temperate month, right? We weren't running the air conditioning. So that's good. And then hydros, but here's the positive news for a wet month. Hey, hydros produced 121,529 kilowatt hours as compared to 2023 with 88,635. That's about, for 2024, that's about $7,500 of avoided cost in the month of June. So kind of interesting. Some of you may have driven around and go, why are these fire hydrants getting different colors on them? The fire department asked us to paint these hydrants for different flows. So when they get to a fire, they know how much the water can be produced at each hydrant. So the caps are being painted blue, green, orange, and red based on how much water can flow out of them. We have one of our summer interns going around and painting those. So that's kind of new. Somebody might ask you, that's what's happening. It's about flows. When the fire department shows up, they know. And here's my favorite one. This is Man Valley Corporate Park. This is the nice path that goes through there. Here's our new lights that are along the pathway. That path will be paved, I think Todd said, the next 4 to 6 weeks, Todd, something like that. So that'll be nice all the way through Man Valley Park. And look at these. This is our new street lights out in Man Valley with our city logo in them in bright blue. Look how they pop there right along that new street out in Man Valley. I'm just telling you, when you drive out there and you see those, you go, oh, I've arrived. I don't know where I've arrived, but I've arrived somewhere. And they really are distinct. They look professional, and I hope you like them as much as I do, because I think they're nice. So anyway, that's what I have for tonight. Are there any questions now in the follow-up on our presentations?
I have some questions.
Sean.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yes.
And I just want to talk about a couple interesting observations. Our communities work to having clean drinking water. I remember when we had a B rating in our total oxygen on demand, and we've worked towards getting a grade A quality, which is a perfect record as far as our last review goes. And I'm very grateful for that. Regarding the CMAR report, could you talk about what other things it monitors for so people are aware of what is in the CMAR, why we have such a high quality water standard in this city compared to others? And then my major question is, what impact does the surrounding areas have on our CMAR as far as what people should be aware of? So for the areas that Todd talked about in his presentation, how do they potentially affect our water quality within the city?
Sure. It's the CMAR is posted on our website, and I can't talk specifically to every detail of that right now and every single thing they're looking for in there. But I can tell you that if you go to our website and look at our CMAR, it lists the maximum percentages in each category, and we are below all of those to get the A rating. So I can just tell you that. I can't tell you exactly what every compound is in every column. But the best place to go for that is on our website. It is posted there, and you can see exactly what we're looking for, what the limits are, and how we've not exceeded the limits. I can just tell you that. And your second part of your question was?
How does the surrounding areas that are not within the city of River Falls, and Todd talked about some of that briefly.
Yeah, Todd and I talked about that offline today as well a little bit. And there are some things, and you mentioned it, Todd, in your presentation, that are out of our control, right? So we have our areas we can control. Then we have the areas, in our watershed that we can't control, a high performing well that we could not control potentially. You want to talk more to that, Todd?
Yeah, I can't add too much to that, but I can say that the City of River Falls is a member of an organization called Rain to Rivers. And the mission of Rain to Rivers is to promote clean water outreach. You may have seen their sign out at there's some advertisements out at the First Bank National Field. So that is one of the ways that we educate the public about the importance of clean water. And additionally, we talk about, if we're talking drinking water wells, our groundwater wells are fairly deep into the down into the Jordan sandstone.
300 to 500 feet.
300 to 500 feet. The residential wells in the surrounding areas of the community, outside of our corporate limits, they're generally shallower in the sandstone and dolomite formation above the Jordan formation, the St. Peter. Is that what I call that? I'm kind of spacing out here, but generally our wells don't interfere with the shallower residential wells in the surrounding community.
But yes, Sean, there are things out of our control within our watershed.
Can I just clarify that the CMAR, because I don't know that everybody knows what that is. So that's the Compliance Maintenance Annual Report for the wastewater treatment plant.
Not the water.
So did you get your answer to on the water? This study was related to the water. CMAR would be the wastewater, and we are impacted. There also is an impact area for wastewater. I don't know that it's as easy to draw geographically as they can for the water basin, but certainly practices in agriculture and other areas around the city they impact some of the treatment that we ultimately do at the wastewater plant.
And from my understanding, the city has a much more stricter regulation than the surrounding areas. Would that be correct?
I don't know if that's true. I think the DNR has set guidelines so that we have to meet. And the water is under the water quality report, which is also on our website.
Yeah. For example, though, like agriculture is not as strictly governed in the sense as city water. That's what I'm getting at.
That's probably true.
Yeah. So
yes,
we take that in consideration when we look at our CMAR, and I'm appreciative of all the work you guys do. You guys do a good job. That's why we have a good report.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Kevin, could you, I know that we are very, very diligent monitoring PFAS and making sure we control that. Does the DNR test the Kinney for PFAS that's discharged not by us, obviously, but by ag upstream, and what are those numbers, or what do they look like? Do we know?
I am not aware that the DNR has been testing the river. I have not seen that.
I assumed maybe they would, but maybe that's
I
wrong.
think their plan is to focus on the point source, and that's why, similar to what Councilmember Downing, they know where our discharge pipe is from the wastewater, and so if they're going to do discharge testing, they'll likely do it at our discharge points, which means all the municipal wastewater plants. But the DNR is not, that I'm aware of, have any kind of sophisticated non-point testing for PFAS. I think they're essentially going to look at the point source which may include industrial, but I'm not up to date on that. Or either of you update on the industrial points?
No, I think it's not, I'm not aware of it.
I think the DNR is starting their PFAS focus on municipal drinking water wells and remediation sites. So formerly contaminated sites are where they're looking for.
And my concern is we can control what we control, and we do that very well. But if somebody's discharging, or if there's ag runoff upstream and they're testing at our discharge, and we're getting blamed for the stuff that flowed, that's the piece that I'm more concerned about.
I mean, that is one of our concern now is, right, we get the point test.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're not counting what's coming down the river.
Yeah.
To your point. I want to hit on that note because I think that is important, Mr. Moore said, is with our new dryer system and River Falls wastewater not taking centrate back from Ellsworth with the 20 communities that would be dumping into our wastewater plant in about 12 months from now, that will be a good thing because it'll just be our wastewater and not other communities. So it'll take some of that equation, things out of our control out of it.
And finally, is that water study available? Could you send that to the council? I think that'd be helpful for us to have.
It will be.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Anyway, utilities kind of dry, kind of boring. Hopefully you can find a little bit interesting. It's important for our daily lives. Thanks for your attention
Thanks,
and time.
guys.
Thank you.
Good job. Okay. So, let's see. Let's move on to a closed council hearing and open up a public hearing on ordinance 2024-03, amending the membership of Plan Commission in section 2.56.010, administration and personnel of the municipal code. This is second reading and disposition. Is there anybody in the audience has anything they'd like to say? Okay, close the public hearing and reopen up the council hearing, and I'll take a motion on this.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2024-03, amending the membership of the Plan Commission.
Second.
First and second, questions or comments?
Can I ask what the motivation was on this?
It was well, Scott can explain more, but it was mostly about not forcing the park and board director to have to sit on the planning commission, or the chairperson to have to sit on the planning commission.
Forcing them to be, I
Well,
know they have to be on,
yeah,
but
they have to be on. I shouldn't say forced, but part of their being on there, they had to sit on the planning
yeah,
commission.
but did they welcome being part of that, or?
Some did, some weren't. You know, people are so busy now, and it's extra meetings, it's extra time. So we just thought it'd be easier to amend it. Unless, Scott, you have anything else to say about that?
I don't think I have anything grand to add, just I guess to clarify or summarize that it's giving the council more ability, more wide candidate pool, and it's giving you one additional citizen spot on your kind of fleet of advisory groups. And also we do think, staff, I guess, is advising you that I think as we go forward, it's going to be increasingly difficult for you to ask somebody to serve on, by accepting one appointment to the Park and Board or Park and Rec Advisory, they're having to accept a second appointment, which is additional responsibilities. Frankly, we've had some difficulties just getting people to accept the one. There isn't anything that I'm aware of, unless Chris, city attorney, knows differently. The mayor could still put the park board chair up for appointment for the plan commission. So if you had a park board chair that was interested in being on the plan commission, the mayor was interested in them being on the plan commission, and the council approved their appointment, you could essentially keep the same practical impact, but you don't that way. Currently now, whenever staff, the mayor will forward somebody that he's interested in having to do board or commission to staff, and in this case, Ms. Peterson would say, well, congratulations, you know, if we're looking for a chair of the park board, and if you accept that, you also would be accepting a position on the plan commission. And the thought is it may be easier to find people that initially want to serve on the park board without thinking that there's some automatic succession that they're going to be on there. But this is a proactive. It's not fixing something that's broken. It's a policy decision by the council.
Mr. Mayor, if I know our city attorney did go over this, and it is legal, it's reasonable. We don't always have a park board chair who can actually make to the plan commission meetings. It's reasonable that we would have a person who could serve in this capacity from the community. So if that helps answer the question.
Does anybody else have anything? First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, next, close council hearing and open up a public hearing on ordinance 2024-04, amending the municipal code section 13.20.020 to 13.20.030, the water wells. This is the first reading. Is there anybody in the audience has anything like to say about this?
Benjamin Fox, 2529 Powell Avenue. I want to thank for the utility director for the presentation earlier. It shows the importance of wells and that a lot of what people in the community development process of Folks River Falls, people found the city of River Falls having a high quality of water, which was surprising to a lot of staff, but they hadn't seen the constant pressure on East Metro of like pollution and everything else. So I realized that you have a very valuable resource of water, not only in the Kinney above ground, but you also have it underground as well. Also with that, on the west side of River Falls, there is a lot of nitrate contamination of private wells. So by being proactive with the city regulating wells within your area that you can, you're also preventing those nitrates from flowing down to other wells as well. So the city's wells, yes, they're very deep, but what you do on the surface can affect other people's private wells. And then the second part of it would be is that I think you have, obviously it's only 11 wells, but that you don't have, right now there's well health protections around those ones you have right now, so you can't own a gas station next to a well. So it'd be good to keep those in mind as you improve these private wells. So thank you.
Nope. Anybody else have anything on this? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and we open up council hearing, and this is just the first reading, so if anybody has any questions, otherwise we'll move on to consent agenda. First is acknowledgement of the following minutes. Got the bid board from 6/11. We have this Historic Preservation Commission from 6/12. Next one is a resolution authorizing submittal of an application to the Wisconsin Community Development Investment Grant Program for Bodie Studies, Bodie Studios. Next one is a resolution authorizing joint submission of EDA Public Works application. That's it. Does anybody want to pull anything? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
First and second on the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next we'll move on to the administrator's report. Scott, if you got anything for us, or if anybody has anything for Scott?
While you're thinking of your questions, I've got a few updates. In-person absentee voting begins next week. Wisconsin State Partisan Primary will be held Tuesday, August 13th from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. In-person absentee voting will be available at City Hall on weekdays from Tuesday, July 30th through Friday, August 9th from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you need more information on that, you can go to there's two sites that are reliable for that information. My Vote Wisconsin. You can search My Vote Wisconsin. The direct site for that is myvote.wi.gov. And also the city keeps an extensive elections webpage. That's at our website, www.rfcity.org/elections. The Great River Falls Picnic is coming up. It's nearly time for our annual community appreciation event. That's hosted by the city and our utilities, city staff, city council, board, commission, and committee members will be hosting the community and serving a free picnic. All are welcome. That's Tuesday, August 8th from 4 to 6 p.m. for this year's celebration. South Wasson Lane reconstruction. The city's partnering with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation to reconstruct South Wasson Lane. That project stretches from Cascade Avenue to Cemetery Road. The termination of the project is just before the Cemetery Road roundabout. The roundabout on Cemetery Road will have some impact from construction, but very little, maybe a day or two. This project is many years in coming. Some of you on council for a while know that you've been working on this, and councils before you. So we've been able to leverage a significant amount of grant funding from outside, which makes up well over 90% when you include the ARPA money that the city council has put forward. It will include a roundabout at the intersection of Cascade Avenue and Cemetery, a new high-capacity storm sewer, and then it will be new curb and gutter and new pavement throughout the corridor. So we're looking forward to that project in partnership with the Wisconsin DOT. That project begins, I guess the technical start of that is this week, and it'll be completed by winter. More detailed project information can be found on our Facebook page. And we also have on the city's website a project page for South Wasson Lane reconstruction. That road, we do want to remind the public that road will be closed except for local traffic, meaning those folks getting to businesses or houses on that road. There will be some temporary interruptions, but residents and property owners will have access along the route. Is there any questions? I had one more update. It's challenging and I want to be careful about rebutting public comments, but I think we've seen repeated inaccurate statements from at least one member of the public. The compost site is licensed. It's inspected by the state. We've recently had 2 inspections and no violations were noted. That site does have stormwater management active on the site. It's not true that the water goes directly to the Guinea.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Okay. We will go to the Comptroller's report for June 2024.
Thank you, Mayor. General fund revenues through the end of June were $5,300,185, or 39% of total budgeted revenues for the year. Revenues in June included $14,625 for liquor and malt beverage licenses, $24,064 for building permits, and $12,770 for swimming pool fees. Expenditures through the end of June were $6,272,433, or 46% of total budgeted expenditures for the year. So as of June 30th, 2024, net expenditures over revenues were $972,248.
Thanks, Diane. Next, I have a couple appointments I'd like to make. I'd like to appoint Ann Nelson through July of 2027 for the library board. And I'd like to appoint Mike Woolsey through May of 2027 for the planning commission.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we accept your appointments.
Second. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next. We will recess in the closed session per Wisconsin State Statute 19.851G, conferring with legal counsel for the government body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, to wit, demand for claim by Amanda Wagner, and 19.851E for the following purposes: deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing in public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons are required to require a closed session. To wit would be potential amendment to development agreement with the River Falls Economic.
Motion to move into closed session.
Second.
First and second. Christie, can I have roll call?
Bjork,
Yes.
Modine,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Morset,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Bierstadt.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to closed session.